I've worked in project management for 9 years. I'm the person companies call when a launch collapses, when a client threatens to walk, when someone else's mess needs cleaning. I don't brag about it. I don't post motivational quotes. I just show up first, leave last, and make sure whatever I touch doesn't fall apart. That's why when my boss, Daniel, hired a new analyst named Claire 8 months ago, I didn't think anything of it. She was smart, confident, quick with numbers. Too quick sometimes, but I didn't judge. Most people in their 20s are still learning the difference between confidence and competence. Daniel assigned her to shadow me. Teach her your workflow, he said, so she can eventually take more ownership. I didn't mind. I like teaching people who want to learn. But over the next months, Claire didn't just take ownership. She took shortcuts, missing documentation, skipping quality checks, sending drafts directly to clients without reviewing them with me first. Every time I would pull her aside and explain why it mattered. Every time she'd smile and say, "Got it, thanks," and then repeat the same mistake the next week. I assumed she was overwhelmed. I assumed Daniel didn't see it. I assumed wrong. One Monday morning, I walked into the office at 8:15, early as usual, and Daniel's door was half open. I heard two voices inside, his and hers. "You're doing great," he said quietly. A chair creaked, then a laugh. Not professional. Not even close. "I just don't want people thinking I got this role for the wrong reason," she said. "You earned it," he whispered. "You earned all of it." I froze. I didn't want to eavesdrop, but the kind of silence that followed wasn't what you hear during a meeting. It was the kind you hear before a kiss. I backed away and went to my desk, my stomach in a knot I tried to ignore. By noon, Daniel announced a team alignment meeting. We gathered in the conference room. Me, Claire, the analysts, the operations staff. Daniel walked in with the kind of smile managers wear, right before they ruin someone's month. "Effective today," he said. "Claire will be taking over lead responsibilities for the Westline account." My account. The company's biggest account. The one I grew from a 300K contract to 2.4 chamas over 3 years. I felt the air shift around me. I kept my expression neutral. I always do. Daniel continued. "She's shown incredible initiative and leadership potential. This is a big step for her, but I'm confident she'll excel." Claire looked down at her hands like she didn't want the attention, but I'd seen enough by now to know that wasn't true. After the meeting, she approached me. "I hope you're not upset," she said. "It's not personal. Daniel just thinks I have a fresh approach. A fresh approach." "Sure." I spent the afternoon documenting everything for the handoff. Not because I wanted to make her life easier, but because I wanted the files clean when, not if, something went sideways. At 7 p.m., I went home, made coffee, and opened the shared iPad to check a recipe. The notification appeared instantly. "Can't wait for tonight." He still has no idea. Her name, her photo, her hand in his. That was the moment something inside me went still. Not angry, not sad. Just quiet. I reread the message, then again. Then the rooftop photo loaded. 2 wine glasses, her head on his shoulder, his hand clearly where it shouldn't have been. And that's when the realization hit me. This wasn't a workplace issue. This wasn't favoritism. This was a conflict of interest so obvious it was practically a billboard. And whatever consequences were coming, they wouldn't be coming from me. Because the only thing worse than a secret is a secret inside a company that documents everything. I didn't know it then, but HR already had one screenshot, just not mine. I closed the iPad, leaned back in my chair, and took a slow, steady breath. Something was breaking. It just wasn't me. I didn't report the message. I didn't confront them. I didn't even bring it up the next morning. Because I've learned something in 9 years of corporate life. People who think they're untouchable always mess up twice. Once in private, once in public. My job wasn't to expose them. My job was simply to keep my hands clean when they exposed themselves. But that didn't mean I wasn't angry. The next day, Claire walked in late. a full 11 minutes after our mandatory stand-up. Holding a latte the size of a fire extinguisher, she didn't apologize. She didn't even look at me. She just slid into her chair and said, "Sorry, traffic." Daniel responded with, "No worries." 2 weeks earlier, when I was 3 minutes late because of a road closure, he'd said, "Grant, you're setting a bad example for the junior staff." I watched him now, nodding at Claire like she'd cured cancer. The irritation in my chest didn't explode. It condensed, the way steam condenses into a blade. At lunch, the operations manager, Alyssa, pulled me aside. "You okay?" she asked quietly. "I'm fine." She gave me a look that meant she didn't believe that. "It's weird," she said. "She's skipping steps. I'm seeing discrepancies in the Westline documentation already." "You told Daniel?" She nodded. He waved it off, said the process can be flexible. I almost laughed. Daniel used to lecture me for 15 minutes if my templates had the wrong font. When I returned to my desk, Claire was sitting in my chair, my actual chair, scrolling through a report I'd been building for weeks. "Oh," she said, not moving. "I needed this file." "You could have asked." "I figured you wouldn't mind," she replied, tapping the screen like she owned the place. I didn't respond. If I did, it wouldn't be professional. And professionalism was my shield now. By 3 p.m., the irritation had settled into something sharper. Daniel sent me a message. "Can you finish the quarterly roll-up by end of day? Claire's swamped." Swamped? She'd spent half the morning gossiping with marketing and the other half misplacing her access badge. But I typed back, "On it," because every unreasonable request creates a record, and records are what HR reads. I stayed late, long after the lights dimmed on motion sensors. Around 8:30, I heard laughter from Daniel's office. He and Claire were inside, lights off, door half open, as if subtlety didn't apply to them anymore. I grabbed my bag and left without a word. On my way out, security, a soft-spoken guy named Madison, stopped me. "Hey, Grant, just FYI. HR's been reviewing badge logs this week." I paused. "Why?" He shrugged. "Don't know. They asked for everyone's after-hours entries for the past 3 months. 3 months. The exact amount of time Claire had been volunteering to stay late with Daniel." Something clicked again, quieter this time, but deeper. The next morning, things escalated. At 10:07 a.m., Daniel sent a team-wide email. "Please direct all Westline-related questions to Claire going forward." 2 minutes later, Claire forwarded me a client request with one line. "Urgent. Fix this." No greeting, no context, just an order. I read the thread. She had already sent the client a wrong document. The numbers were mismatched, the dates impossible, the formatting a disaster. I corrected it, cleaned the file, sent it myself with a professional apology. 5 minutes later, the client replied, "Thank you, Grant, as always." In the CC line, Claire's name sat like a mistake. At 11:30, she marched to my desk. "Don't overwrite my communications," she snapped. "I didn't overwrite, I corrected." "Same thing." "No," I said calmly. "One prevents a problem, the other causes it." Her jaw tightened. She stormed into Daniel's office and shut the door. I waited. 3 minutes. 5. 10. Then Daniel called me in. He didn't even offer a seat. "Claire says you're undermining her. I'm correcting errors. She feels you're making her look incompetent." "I'm not making her anything," I said. "Her work speaks for itself." He bristled. "People like Daniel don't like mirrors." "This attitude," he said slowly, "is exactly why you weren't chosen for the lead role." I almost laughed. Instead, I exhaled. Noted. I walked out before he could add anything else, because there's a point in every unfair situation where speaking becomes useless. But something else happened that afternoon, something neither of them knew. Alyssa, the operations manager, came by my desk with a printout. "Take a look," she whispered. It was a discrepancy log, timestamps, file versions, audit trails. Every error Claire had made since taking over Westline had been automatically flagged by the system. She tapped the bottom of the page. HR requested this. HR? I repeated, voice low. She nodded. They're checking governance issues on all major accounts. Something triggered a review. I took a slow breath. What triggered it? Alyssa glanced around, then leaned in. Someone sent an anonymous screenshot last week. My pulse stopped for half a beat. What screenshot? I don't know. I just know they flagged Westline for conflict of interest risk. I set the paper down carefully, the way you set down something valuable. I didn't send anything. I hadn't told anyone. I thought I was the only one who knew, but I wasn't. Someone else had seen something. Someone else had caught them. And whoever sent that screenshot had just put the first crack in their armor. The week HR got involved, the atmosphere in the office changed. Not loudly, not dramatically, but in the subtle ways only people who pay attention notice. Doors closed more quietly. Voices lowered around corners. Claire stopped wearing perfume. Daniel started calling meetings without inviting me, only to send me follow-up tasks afterward, as if I were an assistant who existed solely to clean up behind his choices. It didn't break me, not yet, but it made something inside me go still, the way a building goes silent right before it collapses in on itself. On Wednesday, things shifted for the first time. I walked into the kitchen for coffee and found Claire staring at the refrigerator door like it had insulted her. When she heard me, she straightened instantly. "Oh," she said with a brittle smile. "Didn't see you." She looked different, tense, eyes tired, shoulders tight. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Of course," she snapped too quickly. Then, just a lot going on? I didn't push. I just filled my mug and nodded. But as I left the kitchen, I saw her phone screen light up on the counter. A message preview. They asked about the rooftop. Don't say anything. No name. Just those words. I didn't touch the phone. I didn't take a picture. I didn't need to. Because that message meant a line had been crossed. Not with me, but with HR. They were digging, and someone was sweating. At noon, Alyssa called me over. "Grant," she whispered, sliding her laptop slightly toward me. "Look." It was our internal governance dashboard. A bright yellow alert blinked next to the Westline project. Priority review. Potential ethics violation. My throat tightened. "You're not in trouble," she said quickly. "The work logs show you were the only one consistently following procedure." "Then who—" "You know who?" I did. Of course I did. But what I didn't understand was how HR had gotten involved so deeply, so fast. Then Alyssa lowered her voice. "They're interviewing people this week, not managers. Staff." "Why staff?" "Because someone flagged the conflict at the leadership level, and HR doesn't investigate up unless they have reason." I leaned back, tried to absorb that. Someone in the office hadn't just seen something. They'd spoken. Out loud. Officially. For the rest of the day, tension pushed against the walls like heat in a sealed room. At 4 p.m., Daniel called me into his office without looking up from his laptop. "Close the door." I did. He finally glanced at me, expression tight, defensive. "Have you talked to HR?" he asked. "No." "Has anyone asked you anything?" "No." He drummed his fingers on the desk. "If they do," he said quietly, "you will keep this professional. Understood?" "I'm always professional." "That's not what I meant." "I know what you meant," I replied, "and the answer is still the same." His jaw clenched. "Grant, don't play games. This is serious." "I'm not the one playing anything," I said evenly. He stared at me like I'd insulted his bloodline. "You're angry about the reassignment," he said. "I get it, but don't ruin a career over it." "A career?" I repeated. "Whose?" He didn't answer, because he knew what I was really asking. His face tightened, then softened, then tried to rearrange itself into authority. "This is a misunderstanding. Claire is doing her best. She deserves support. The team needs alignment, not drama." I watched him talk, watched him twist the narrative into something he could live with. And for the first time, I felt something break. Not anger, not grief, just the realization that integrity meant nothing to people who believed they'd never be held accountable. When I didn't respond, he leaned forward. If HR asks, you will emphasize that everything is fine. You will not exaggerate. You will not speculate. You will not... I won't lie, I said. The silence between us went cold. He exhaled slowly. You always were rigid, I nodded. And you always wanted shortcuts, he stood. Get out of my office. I left without another word. On my way back to my desk, Claire intercepted me. Can we talk? Her voice was urgent. Too urgent. We should wait until after work, I said. No, she insisted. Now. She pulled me into the small project room, a glass box with a table and 2 chairs. Before I could sit, she spoke. They're asking questions about timelines, about access logs, about after hours. Daniel says you're being vindictive. I haven't said a word. She searched my face, as if trying to find a crack. Can you, please, not mention anything about me and Daniel? I didn't speak. She swallowed. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I didn't ask for... Claire, I said quietly, you accepted a leadership position that wasn't yours. You bypassed procedure, and you let him put you in a situation that any HR department would call a conflict of interest. It's not a conflict, she snapped. It was consensual. That's not what conflict means, she blinked rapidly. Either from fear, frustration, or guilt. I couldn't tell. I'm trying to fix it, she whispered. Then tell the truth. I can't. That's your choice, I said. Not my problem. Her eyes hardened. You think you're better than us. No, I said. I think I made better choices. She shook her head, stepping back as if I'd shoved her. You're not innocent. I never claimed to be. She stood there a moment longer, trying to form an argument that didn't exist. Then she left, shoulders tense, breath uneven. By Friday, HR had officially requested time with me, a short email. Grant, please come to conference room C at 10:30. Routine review. Routine. Sure. When I walked in, 2 people waited, the HR director, a calm woman named Patel, and an investigator I'd never seen before, a man with a notebook already open. They offered me water, told me to sit. We're reviewing several accounts, Patel said gently. Your name comes up often. In what context? As someone consistent with process. I nodded. They slid a folder forward. We want to confirm a few things, the investigator said. Nothing accusatory, just clarity. For 20 minutes, I answered every question honestly. Yes, I documented everything. Yes, I saw irregularities. Yes, I corrected errors. No, I wasn't aware of any policy violations at the time they occurred. No, I wasn't aware of any personal relationship influencing assignments. No, I didn't file any complaint. Their pens didn't move quickly. They weren't fishing. They were confirming what they already had. When the interview ended, Patel closed her folder. Thank you, Grant. This was helpful. I stood. Then the investigator added, one more thing. I paused. If anything else comes to light, anything relevant, we'd appreciate being informed. I nodded once and left. But on the walk back to my desk, something shifted inside me again. Not anger, not spite, just clarity. This wasn't just unfair. It was unsustainable. People like Daniel don't stop until someone stops them. People like Claire don't admit mistakes until consequences arrive. And consequences were already walking down the hall. I could feel it, and the next crack in their world was coming sooner than they expected. Monday started with silence, the kind that only happens when people know something is wrong, but no one wants to be the first to say it. I walked into the office at 8:12 a.m., coffee in hand, and instantly felt it. 3 analysts were whispering near the copier. A project coordinator stared at her screen with the concentration of someone pretending not to listen. Claire's desk was empty. Daniel's door was closed. The email hit my inbox at 8:17. All team members are required to attend a mandatory meeting at 9 a.m. in the conference hall. No signature, just that. Mandatory meetings at 9 a.m. are never about good news. I sat down, opened my laptop, and prepared for whatever came next. At 8:41, Claire finally arrived. Hair pulled into a tight bun, circles under her eyes, holding her badge in both hands like she wasn't sure it would still work. She saw me, hesitated, then walked to her desk without speaking. 2 minutes later, Daniel stormed in. He didn't look at anyone. He didn't greet anyone. He didn't even set his bag down. He just rushed into his office and slammed the door so hard the glass rattled. The room went dead quiet. At 8:58, people began filing toward the conference hall. I walked in, took a seat near the middle, not hiding, not presenting myself, simply present. The HR director, Patel, stood at the front of the room. Next to her was the investigator from my interview. On her other side, the head of compliance, a man who only appeared when something legally sensitive was underway. Daniel wasn't in the room. Claire wasn't either, but 2 empty seats in the front row made it clear they were supposed to be. When the doors closed, Patel began, "Thank you for coming. We won't take much of your time. Over the past 2 weeks, our department has been conducting a review of several internal governance concerns." Murmurs rippled quietly across the room. She continued, "This review has uncovered a pattern of procedural violations, documentation irregularities, and potential conflicts of interest involving the Westline account." I looked straight ahead, not at anyone, not at anything, just a numb sort of focus. Then the investigator stepped forward. These issues were not brought to HR by any single individual. They surfaced because multiple automated systems flagged inconsistencies. Of course they did. Automation has no loyalty. The review, he went on, has also revealed a breach of policy involving undisclosed personal relationships affecting professional assignments. The room tensed. Everyone knew who he meant. Everyone. But hearing it said out loud, that was different. Before he could continue, the door opened. Daniel walked in, stiff, jaw tight, eyes scanning the room like he was trying to assess how bad it was. Behind him, Claire followed, smaller than usual, pale, barely keeping up. Patel nodded at them but didn't pause. "As of this morning," she continued, "both involved parties have been placed on administrative leave pending final review." Daniel froze. Claire's hand trembled, but Patel wasn't finished. "We have also found that key decisions were made without proper oversight. Emails were deleted, documentation altered, logs manipulated. These are not minor infractions." The head of compliance stepped forward, a rare sight. "For legal reasons," he said, "we will not be naming specific violations until the review concludes. However," he opened a folder, "we will say that clients have been informed of delays caused by internal discrepancies. We have issued corrective documentation, and we have already begun stabilizing affected accounts." My stomach tightened. Stabilizing accounts meant cleaning up messes. My messes? No, theirs. But then Patel said something unexpected. One employee's documentation, consistency, and precision during this period made it possible for us to reconstruct the timeline accurately. A hush spread through the hall. She didn't say my name. She didn't need to. Daniel's eyes turned toward me. First disbelief, then accusation, then something almost like fear. I met his stare. Neutral, unmoving. He looked away first. Then the investigator spoke again. "This review isn't complete, but we can say definitively that without accurate log trails and version histories maintained by certain staff, the full scope of the issue would remain unclear." Claire looked at me then, her expression torn between desperation and something like regret. And I realized something. She wasn't afraid of losing her job. She was afraid of losing him. But he was afraid of something else entirely. Control. After the meeting, the room emptied quickly, half the team whispering, half pretending not to. I stayed seated for a moment, letting the noise wash past me. Then Patel approached. "Grant," she said softly. "A moment?" I followed her to a quiet corner. "I want you to know," she said, "that your interview was consistent with everything we found. I told the truth. I know, she paused, and your professionalism through all of this is noted. Professionalism. Funny how that word used to feel heavy. Now it felt like armor. We'll speak again soon, she said, but for now, continue as normal. Normal, as if that still existed. When I returned to the office, Daniel's door was locked. His nameplate was still on the glass, but his desk was empty. Drawers pulled open, items removed. Claire was packing her things quietly. Her hands shook with every item she placed into the box. When she noticed me, she forced herself to stand straight. "You won," she said. I shook my head. "This wasn't a competition." "Easy for you to say." Her voice cracked. "You were waiting for this." "No, I was surviving this." Her eyes filled, not with tears, but with the realization that everything she'd built on shortcuts had collapsed in a single morning. "They're going to fire him," she whispered. "That's not for me to decide." She stepped closer. "You could have told them less, and you could have done more." She didn't argue. She didn't defend herself. She just stood there, small, exhausted, hollow. "Grant," her voice broke slightly, "I never meant for it to get this far." "It always gets this far," I said quietly, "when people think they're untouchable." She wiped her face with the back of her hand, picked up the box, and walked out without another word. 30 minutes later, I received an email from HR directly. "Grant, please meet with us tomorrow at 2 p.m. to discuss transition planning for the Westline account." Transition planning? That wasn't subtle. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. The chaos had happened. The damage had surfaced. The system had corrected itself. Now came the part no one ever expects. The part where the person who stayed steady through the storm finally gets to decide what comes next. And what came next would change everything. HR didn't keep me waiting. The next day at 2 p.m., I walked into the same conference room where I'd been interviewed a week earlier. The chairs were arranged differently now, 3 on one side, 1 on the other, as if the shape of the room itself had changed. Patel motioned for me to sit. "Thank you for coming, Grant," she began. "We know this has been a disruptive period for the team." I nodded. "I assume the review is finished." "Mostly. Enough to take action." The investigator opened a folder. "As of this morning, Daniel has resigned." I let the words settle. No reaction, no satisfaction, just conclusion. Patel continued, "And Claire is being terminated for cause." I didn't feel anything sharp. No spike of vindication. No thrill of victory. Just the quiet understanding that consequences had arrived in the exact way consequences always arrive. Slow, quiet, inevitable. "We want to be clear," Patel said. "Your documentation didn't target anyone. It simply made it possible to reconstruct what happened. Your consistency," the investigator added, "prevented significant financial and reputational damage. The company recognizes that." I waited. I knew there was more. Patel folded her hands. "We are restructuring leadership around Westline and 2 related accounts. We would like you to take over as acting senior project lead." Acting. A careful word. A corporate word. "Acting," I repeated. "For now," she clarified, "pending executive approval." I leaned back slightly. "What's the scope?" "Full oversight of Westline, authority to rebuild the process, hiring input, team selection, direct line to compliance for the next 90 days. That was significant. "And the title?" I asked. "We'll revisit after the quarter," she said. "But the compensation adjustment begins immediately." I nodded slowly. I wasn't surprised. I wasn't overwhelmed. I wasn't flattered. I was ready. I think they saw that because Patel's expression softened. "You're unusually calm," she said. "I've been preparing for this without realizing it," I answered. And it was true. The chaos had forced clarity. The storm had stripped away whatever illusions were left. We spoke for another 20 minutes. Logistics, transition, confidentiality, timelines. Everything was practical, concrete, manageable. At the end, Patel said, "One more thing. We're aware this situation put you in a difficult position. Your professionalism during the review has been noted at the executive level. I just did my job. No, she said gently. You did more. I left the conference room with a strange feeling, not pride, not relief, something deeper and quieter. Weightlessness. For the first time in months, my steps didn't feel heavy. When I reached my desk, people glanced up, not with pity, not with suspicion, with respect. Alyssa approached first. Well, she asked, arms crossed. Acting lead, I said. She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath since last week. Finally, someone who actually does the job. Then she leaned closer. Grant, you earned this. Not you deserved. Not you waited long enough. Earned. It landed softly but stayed. Around 4, I went to clean out the last of Daniel's mess from the Westline folder. The documents were a disaster. Broken references, missing files, mislabeled versions. But it didn't bother me. Chaos is just a list you haven't organized yet. By 6, I submitted a rollback proposal to compliance. By 7, I had rebuilt the entire project roadmap. Not because I needed to impress anyone, but because competence feels better than revenge. When I finally left the office, the sunset hit the windows in orange and gold. The elevator ride down felt like descending from somewhere I'd been stuck for too long. Outside, the air was cool, honest, uncomplicated. On the walk to the garage, I saw Claire sitting alone on a bench near the entrance, cardboard box beside her. She didn't see me at first. When she did, she stood. Grant, she said quietly. I stopped a few feet away. I'm not here to fight, she added quickly. I just wanted to say something. I waited. You were right, she said, about everything. Her voice wasn't angry now, or defensive, just tired. I thought I could handle what he promised, she continued. I thought it would give me a shortcut, a chance to skip the line. But I ruined everything. I didn't respond immediately, because the truth is, regret sounds the same whether it's sincere or strategic. After a moment I said, I hope you learn from this, but I'm not the person who needs that apology. She looked down. I know. Then she picked up her box, gave me a small nod, and walked away across the parking lot. Her steps were uneven, not because she was sad, because the illusion she'd been living in had cracked for good. We all grow up at different speeds. Some learn from mistakes, some don't. Either way, it wasn't my responsibility anymore. I got into my car, turned the key, and let the engine settle into its familiar hum. For the first time in months, I didn't dread tomorrow. Tomorrow was mine again. The next few weeks moved smoothly. Westline stabilized. Clients responded positively. The team relaxed. Processes improved. No drama, no politics, no favoritism. Just work. The clean, satisfying kind. I rebuilt the documentation system. Trained 2 analysts. Reassigned responsibilities based on competence instead of charisma. I didn't chase leadership. I didn't chase approval. I didn't chase validation. I simply built. And eventually the company noticed. On a Thursday afternoon, Patel sent me a short email. Title update approved. Congratulations. Attached was the updated org chart. Senior project lead. Grant Lawson. Permanent. Not acting. Not temporary. Earned. Sometimes people expect a big ending. A moment with applause, a ceremony, a speech. But real endings aren't loud. They are simple. A quiet office. A clean desk. A job done right. A system restored. A life recalibrated. And real satisfaction isn't about watching someone else fall. It's about no longer needing to. The last time I saw Daniel, months later, he was leaving the lobby as I was entering. He froze when he recognized me. I didn't stop. I didn't glare. I didn't offer a reaction. I just nodded once, polite, distant, and kept walking. Because the moment I took the lead role, I realized something important. Revenge ends. Growth doesn't. I didn't become senior lead because he failed. I became senior lead because I didn't. And the peace that comes with that, it's quiet. It's steady. It's better than revenge ever could be. The story didn't end with his downfall. It ended with me standing where I should have been all along. And that is the most satisfying ending I could ask for.